box that is accounting for some of this, what may be rotation in parts of eastern Pike County. So all of that moving to the northwest, circling around the bigger storm. There it goes. So the inner box has been allowed to expire now. So we still have this tornado warning for this part of the storm traveling to the northwest, getting up into parts of from Pike into Ross County. South Salem, heads up, here it comes. You're going to need to get into that safe space. Sarah, can you zoom in on this one right here, this part with the, that looks like some...
Over near South Salem?
Yep, let's get some velocity readings on that and see where we are at the moment. So just east of 50, yeah, right there. That's the one. So this right here on 50, just headed up between South Salem and Frankfort. So this is going to the northwest. This is the rotation that's going to be the biggest concern right now. So toward and away, you've got that counterclockwise circulation. Northern hemisphere, where we are, everything goes counterclockwise. There are exceedingly rare cases where it might go clockwise, but that is really unusual. In almost 95% or more cases, it's going counterclockwise. Probably 99% of cases going counterclockwise. So right here, that almost looks like it's trying to generate its own little mesocyclone right there with its own little eye. So this is where it's trying to get that circulation going. So far, it's still very broad. It's a couple of miles across, and that's good news for us. If that gets much smaller, then we've got the potential for that to come down out of the cloud and get to the ground. In the meantime, both a tornado warning and a severe thunderstorm warning in effect for portions of Pike and Ross counties. Take a look down here, east of 23, east of Piketon and Waverly. This is also not just some heavy rain, but the potential for some rotation down here as well. So from Waverly and Piketon on down the rest of 23 through Pike County, safe space. This is the time to get there and to make sure that you've got your pets with you, get your cell phone with you, keep it charged up as long as you can. If you're charging while you're in your safe space until the lights go out, that would be a great opportunity to get as much of that charged up as you can. If you've got a severe weather kit, we've talked about this before. This is a really good idea, and it's a little late right now, but you want to do this ahead of time. And once you put it together, you can keep it ready to go always. In Florida, parts of the Gulf Coast, East Coast, places that are hurricane prone, we get a lot of this where people have kits ready to go for hurricanes. We don't do it as often here in the Midwest, but we probably should, because in a situation like we have today, it's good to have it already prepared. Have important documents in it, things like where are my insurance documents? Put copies of those in there. Copies of family documents like birth certificates and that kind of thing. Maybe not the originals, but if you want to put them in there and they're safe, but make sure you've got those important documents at hand. Put some extra medications in there. If you end up in a situation where you're out of power for a few days, you'll know where those extra supplies are. And don't forget pets. They may need some medication and food as well. Have all of that ready to go so that if the power goes out, you can be good to go for a couple of days. That's the kind of supply you want to have in there. In the meantime, east of Waverly right now, there is that tornado warning. It covers all of this area up into central and western Ross County, including South Salem, almost into Frankfort. But Chillicothe is in part of that watch box. If you hear sirens in Chillicothe right now, this is why, because this tornado warning is still in effect. Up here in Columbus, so far no warnings for us, but we do have some exceedingly heavy rain over the next hour or so. As this continues to rain this heavily, we could end up with some localized flooding from that. So this is going to be something, even in the city, to keep an eye on, because there comes a point where the sewer systems and the runoff systems can only handle so much, and it's a lot of rain coming down very fast. That's going to be part of all of this as well. And that stretches all the way up into Marion and Crawford counties, a little bit of Wyandotte County as well. But this is the most concerning right here, Chillicothe and Waverly. Right now, you are under a tornado warning until at least 5 o'clock tonight, because National Weather Service has noticed enough rotation on radar that it means that there could be enough to come down to the ground. And that's why they're giving you the heads up with enough time to get to your safe space, to take action before anything really does end up on the ground. Lead time is critical in some of these situations. We've had plenty of times where the lead time was just instants before something came down. And those are really difficult, especially when it happens at night, because you can't see what's coming. But anytime there's enough lead time like this to give you the heads up to get to your safe space, heed that and take action immediately. All of this moving to the northwest, and it's moving fast. Some of this moving at almost highway speeds as it's coming through. So 40, 50, 60 miles per hour with winds to match. And that is just about to get into Waverly. It's just to the east of Piketon as well. And that will then make its way up into parts of South Salem and Chillicothe. Sarah.
I'm going to try to put a timer on this. I know it's kind of hard because it's kind of the direction that it's going. So I want to start it off with like the leading edge of it into parts of Waverly for anyone who wants to know. Since it's going to the northwest, there's that.
So what is that set for, 35?
35.
So this is going to be potentially even slower than it really is. It might get to some of these areas a little faster than this. But for Frankfort, between about 5 and 5:11. So you may see it already getting into the area. If you notice, that's where the line for the tornado warning also ends. So that's about 5 o'clock where the timing on that's going to be. For parts of, for Plano at 6:25, New Martinsburg getting a little farther off toward the northwest, getting into a little bit of Highland County, and then farther east of that into a little bit of Fayette County. You're going to see more of that heavy rain moving through. But the strongest part of the storm right down here, just east of Waverly, traveling up through southern and western Ross County, that is where we are headed at the moment. So take plenty of precautions at the moment. We're not done with this by any means. This is a storm that's going to go on for the next few hours, and we're going to have to deal with the heavy rain at the very least, but also the gusty straight line winds. Parts of the southwestern portion of the state have already reported wind gusts of 53 to 56 miles per hour. We've had 40 to 46 mile per hour wind gusts here in Columbus, and similar wind gusts down in parts of south central Ohio. So from Waverly and Chillicothe, the straight line winds are already an issue for us, but now we're adding this extra layer with the potential of some rotation. So with that, there's another threat that happens there that could be a tornado. And so tornado warnings in effect for Pike and Ross counties until at least 5 o'clock tonight. Sarah?
Yeah, and one other thing, as we're getting close to the evening rush hour, you're going to be running into a lot of ponding. When I was driving over here from my place, there was a lot. And there was some times where I was hitting potholes because I couldn't see the potholes because of the rain.
Because of the rain on the road.
Yes.
That's exactly what we're talking about with the potential when there's some flooding, is that you can county 1.6 for a little bit of Perry County up near New Lex. Some of that getting up into the Buckeye Lake area here close to I-70 in parts of Fairfield and Licking counties. So you still have some very heavy rain coming in from the southeast, which is, to be honest, kind of an unusual direction to come from the northwest. But this is circling around that big low pressure center. Do you have the SATRAD option? Let's widen out on a big SATRAD and take a look at where this the center of this circulation is. This is a big storm.
Yeah.
If you remember looking at it last night, we actually put an overlay of Ohio on top of the hurricane. And the hurricane itself, especially with the extended wind field, was much larger than the state of Ohio. And now it has spread out even more. You see how big this is? So this is going, look at these outer bands up here along the Lake Erie shoreline, and you still have the center of circulation all the way down here in parts of Kentucky. So this entire system is going to be stalling out, and it's going to sit here for the next at least 3 days, maybe even 4 days. parts of parts of western Kentucky and western Tennessee are going to get enormous amounts of rain out of this. We will get less, but we're going to get a bunch of rain out of it too. But the center of circulation is going to stay right in this area all the way until about Tuesday. And so as it sits there with nothing to push it along, nothing to get it out of the way, it'll just continue to drop more and more rain across the region. Eventually, there's a cold front coming on Tuesday. And that's what will finally push a lot of this out of here, because as this giant system falls out of the jet stream, it's not really in the jet stream to start with. It's kind of on its own momentum at the moment, but it doesn't have anything to move it along. It doesn't have a steering mechanism. So as it stalls out, it's going to sit there for a few days. It's similar to having a leaf in the river. So the leaf is traveling down the river and it goes along at kind of the speed of the river, which is like the jet stream. But then when that leaf kind of goes off to the side, it's out of the influence, which means there's nothing to move it along anymore. And that little leaf just sort of sits there on the side and spins around for a long time. The same thing is happening in the atmosphere with this system. So it doesn't have the jet stream to move it along and push it off to the east, so it just sort of stays around. Eventually, as that cold front comes in on Tuesday, that's what will finally push a lot of this off to the east, and things will quiet down a little bit. But this tornado warning, in effect until 5 o'clock, it is currently radar indicated. We do not have any reports of anything on the ground, but that's, at least for now, good news. It does mean that there is rotation on radar, and it's easy for this to eventually come to the ground. So getting to your safe space is the place to be. Where is that? Interior is the best place to be. As far inside toward the center of your house as you can get. Did you just see something?
No, I was just pulling up the list for you.
I saw her jump. I was like, uh-oh, you saw something. So here we are. So when there's a tornado warning, your basement or lowest interior room is going to be your best place. If you have a large bay of windows or even a sliding glass door, get away from that as best you can. Not just because the window itself can get blown in, but when there's debris, that can hit the windows and shatter them and then create some extra debris, which can be a big problem. Out of mobile homes, if you can get to a sturdy structure, you've seen what a tornado can do to a mobile home. You do not want to be in there if there's a tornado on the ground. If you're in your car, then the best thing to do is to, as safely and quickly as possible, get to a sturdy shelter. If you can't do that in your car, then you want to get as low as you can in a ditch. The best place to go, hopefully, is a ditch that is not full of water. You don't want to be there, but you also do not want to be under an overpass. I know a lot of times it's tempting to pull under that overpass and to get out of the rain and the heavy downpours, but under that overpass, it's like putting your thumb on the end of the hose. The wind is going to squeeze through there just like the water coming out of the hose. And so it actually gets stronger under that underpass, especially when you get up there in that corner where the ground comes up to the road above. Folks will hide up there, and that's really one of the most dangerous places you can be. So you do not want to be there. In the meantime, interior of your house, as low as you can go, that's the place to be in Ross and Pike counties right now. Southern Ross County with some very heavy rain there, plus you see what's happening down near Piketon as we speak. We have some brand new video just coming in. Robert, where's this from? Northwest of Chillicothe. So we're going to be just up here in this part of Ross County. And there we go. You can see some of that rain coming down and the ominous clouds in the distance. Doesn't look like hail happening there just yet, but there may be some areas where there is some hail embedded. So that is still also a possibility. Look in the distance there. You can see the trees really being bent over by that breeze. Look how strong the wind is there. Okay. And the clouds racing by. So this is the kind of thing that we're talking about. So look at the tree on the right-hand side of your screen there. Look at the branches in that tree just being pulled over by the wind. Same thing happening on the trees on the left-hand side. See how it's just really bending those trees over a little bit? That is some very, very strong wind. And those are straight line winds. That's not necessarily anything tornadic. That's just straight line winds. Right now, your current winds in Circleville, and these are sustained winds at 39 miles per hour, 41 miles per hour in Washington Courthouse. Gusts are going to be 10 to 15 miles per hour, more than that. 23 miles per hour here in Columbus. Here's Dayton at 48, Cincinnati at 43. These are some very strong winds out there circulating around what is or was Helene when it came ashore. So it is still going to be a powerful storm over the next day or so as it circulates through the area. But the biggest area of concern right now locally is going to be this portion of central Ross County down into the Route 23 area in Pike County. So from Waverly down here to Piketon, you're in the thick of it right now with the potential for some very heavy rain, and radar has indicated that there is rotation in this system. So that's why it's important to take those tornado precautions now. What are we looking at here? Let's see, right there, just south of Chillicothe. That's going to be a little bit of rotation happening there. But again, this is miles and miles across, which is good news, but doesn't mean we're out of the woods, because that can very quickly tighten up. Radar looks at all of this in sections. So radar, the beam comes around once and it's at one level, and then it comes around again and it looks up just a little bit. It comes around again, looks up just a little bit more. And each time the radar makes a turn, it looks up just a little bit more. And as it does that, it's collecting all kinds of data about all the different levels in the atmosphere. So that gives us the opportunity to see what's happening at the surface and the mid-levels and all the way up toward the top of the atmosphere. All of that can then also show us where there is rotation in the cloud. It takes a couple of minutes for that kind of collection to happen, sometimes 4 to 6 minutes. And in that amount of time, in between what we'd call a full scan, you can have a tornado form, touch the ground, do some damage, and then disappear again. And radar may not have had a chance to see it in that amount of time. Stacia?
Well, Marshall, I just wanted to ask the question, because as we're talking about a tornado warning, and obviously that's important, straight line winds are very serious as well, and we don't want to lose sight of that. If you're thinking, oh, well, there's no warning in my area, I don't have to worry. Straight line winds, if you could speak to just the seriousness of that component of this system.
Yep. Sarah, there's an alert day graphic. Can you pull that up real quick? It should be right in there as well. So the straight line winds have been something we've been talking about since last night. And because of that, that is why there is a high wind warning as well as a wind advisory in effect. And that is because the straight line winds themselves can cause some significant damage. So gusty winds, we've already seen some at 50 plus miles per hour, and that can bring down tree limbs. It can move around the porch furniture. If you've still got some things out from the summer, those can be moved around. They can even become projectiles. So that's why the straight line winds are an issue, because then power outages can happen. So if a branch comes down, takes out a power line, it can take out your whole neighborhood's power. So then you've got to wait until all of that gets fixed. So isolated power outages become an issue. Driving is an issue because, especially for a high-profile vehicle, and let's be honest, when the wind is this strong, even a small vehicle is going to start to feel this. But driving becomes a challenge while you're trying to hang on to the steering wheel and the wind is trying to push you off out of your lane. You've really got to hang on tight and try to correct for that. Driving a semi can be exceedingly challenging in these kind of conditions, because basically you've got a giant sail on the back and the wind is just hitting that and trying to push you out of your lane. Plus, we've got the rain, and as Sarah mentioned a little bit ago, the rain has been enough to cause ponding on the roads,